don't want true lucidity. You want the illusion of clarity without paying the price of seeing naked reality. What you call peace of mind is merely social anesthesia. You sleep well because you don't know you're walking through a minefield. Ignorance is mathematically a blessing until the day it kills you. Lucidity awakens you and you never sleep the same way again. Modern culture sells lucidity as a motivational self-help product. Wake up and be happy. Find your inner truth and live in peace. A brutal commercial lie. True, pure vision doesn't bring emotional peace. It brings operational clarity that destroys three things forever: the comfort of believing in shared narratives, the ability to be moved by collective dramas, and the right to be surprised when relationships end or people betray you. Because when you truly see the mechanics behind the social theater, you see the ending before the first act begins, and you can't unsee it. The inability to unsee is permanent, irreversible, definitive. The real burden no one warns you about. Lucidity breeds profound intellectual loneliness that no relationship can fill. You may love people, be surrounded by family, have close friends, but you operate at a different voltage, processing reality at a frequency others don't grasp. You see patterns they ignore. You predict collapses they celebrate as achievements. And when you point out the obvious, you don't receive gratitude. You receive tribal exclusion because you destroyed the collective anesthesia that keeps everyone asleep. Worse, you'll start predicting moves with frightening accuracy. See people walking straight into traps 5 steps before impact and discover that warning them is useless because those without vision can't use the map you offer. This content doesn't romanticize awakening. It shows the brutal trade. You surrender innocence, herd mentality, the capacity for shock, and in return, you receive clarity that never switches off, vigilance that never rests, responsibility that never forgives ignorance. The conscious elite doesn't seek this for spiritual enlightenment. They embrace it because the alternative is to die surprised in the dark. The weight of truth is heavy, but the weight of being caught off guard is fatal. Choose your curse. The phrase ignorance is bliss isn't motivational poetry. It's applied neural physics. Ignorance acts as a cognitive buffer, allowing the nervous system to process reality in tolerable doses, in small portions that don't destroy the survival mechanism. The human brain evolved to create narratives, heroes defeating villains, divine purposes guiding destinies, special meanings justifying pain. These stories aren't true. They're cognitive anesthesia installed to make suffering bearable. When you develop hard lucidity and see through these shared illusions, you lose the protection that kept the system stable. The price of clarity is the loss of innocence, and you never return to the existential cradle where you slept peacefully. Knowing too much means seeing inevitable causality, operating in real time, recognizing patterns that others ignore out of sheer numbness. You see the relationship ending before the first kiss, predict the company going bankrupt before the first balance sheet, identify the person you love making the same mistake for the 10th time without learning anything. The curse of lucidity is that the brain can no longer operate under the previous illusion. It's like learning to see optical illusions. Once you know the trick, you never see the image the same way again. The inability to unsee is permanent, irreversible, absolute. You have lost the right to return to ignorance because the confronting truth has already burned the circuits of denial. The living dead live in peace because they don't know they are walking through a minefield. The conscious elite live in permanent vigilance because they see every explosive buried in the ground. Accept that you've lost your shock absorber forever. Every time you long for the old peace, acknowledge with stark realism, that wasn't peace, it was sedation. It was the comfort of not knowing the ground was crumbling beneath your feet. The destruction of common peace is the price you pay for operational clarity. There's no possible negotiation, no middle ground, no way to have pure vision and continue sleeping soundly. The mental burden of lucidity is that you see what's coming, calculate the probabilities, identify the errors before they turn into catastrophes. And this puts you in an exile that most can't even imagine, because when you see what others refuse to see, you cease to be part of the tribe. Common peace is based on collective agreement about shared lies that no one questions. Everyone agrees that status matters, that external validation defines value, that accumulating things brings security. Society functions through tacit agreements about what deserves drama, what justifies suffering, what is worth defending. When you develop unfiltered vision and realize that most human struggles are fights over shadows, you automatically withdraw from the tribe of shared illusion. It's not a conscious choice, it's an inevitable consequence of seeing the mechanics behind the theater. The conscious elite recognizes these social constructs are arbitrary, temporary, completely irrelevant in the architecture of reality. And when you can no longer seriously participate in the collective delusion, you become the stranger in the room even when surrounded by family and friends. The loss of collective enthusiasm is a visible symptom of the social isolation that lucidity causes. You watch people celebrating achievements that you know are temporary through impermanence, suffering from losses that you know are inevitable due to universal causality. You can no longer share in the euphoria when someone finally achieved something that will dissolve in months, nor in the despair when someone loses something that was always temporary. The living dead feel everything intensely because they believe in the narratives. The operator of lucidity sees processes happening without ownership, without drama, without the need to stage performative concern. This is not emotional coldness, it is emotional efficiency. But for those who live anesthetized, their technical neutrality seems like insensitivity, their clarity seems like arrogance, their cold peace seems like disconnection. The profound intellectual loneliness that emerges is insurmountable. You can love people deeply, but you can no longer share their worldview. There's a chasm between seeing the mechanics and living the narrative, between operating with mental sovereignty and reacting on emotional impulse. When you point out that the emperor has no clothes, people don't thank you for your lucidity. They exclude you to protect the illusion that keeps their system running. Stop trying to make others understand, because understanding requires them to pay the same price you paid. Accept strategic loneliness as the cost of clarity. You may be physically with people, but your system operates at a different voltage, processes reality at a different frequency. And this tribal exclusion is not punishment, it's protection of the herd against those who might destroy the collective anesthesia that keeps everyone asleep. As a lucid operator, you begin to predict moves with frightening statistical precision. You see patterns of behavior that others ignore. You identify mechanical causality where others see chance. This creates a specific burden that no one warns you about. The impotence of watching gears turn without being able to stop other people's processes. You know exactly what will happen if that person continues down that path. You see the accident coming 5 moves in advance through your reading of the board. But warning is useless because those who lack field of vision cannot use the map. They don't see the stones you're pointing out. The burden of predictability is carrying knowledge that no one wants, seeing collapses before they happen, and having to choose between warning and being ignored or remaining silent and watching the impact. Prediction as a burden operates like this. If you warn them, they won't listen because their vision is clouded by cognitive anesthesia. If you don't warn them, you'll have to watch the impact, knowing it was predictable, calculable, avoidable. Both options destroy peace in different ways. One frustrates you through the other's refusal, the other corrodes you through conscious omission. The death of existential suspense is an inevitable collateral effect. Life loses its element of surprise when you identify that pattern. A always leads to result B. Betrayals, failures, deaths. Nothing shocks you anymore because you've already mapped the causality leading up to that point through causal prediction. The living dead live in constant suspense, surprised by each event. The conscious elite live in mechanical prediction, rarely surprised because they've already calculated the probabilities. Perpetual responsibility without power is one of the heaviest curses of harsh lucidity. You clearly see the problems, but you can't solve other people's problems because everyone has to walk their own path. This impotence in the face of clarity generates a specific type of intellectual exile. You carry the lantern, but you can't force anyone to look where you point. Issue the warning once with technical neutrality, like a data ping without emotional charge. If they ignore it, accept that the stumble is part of their learning, that the fall as calibration is necessary to awaken. Protect your peace through pragmatic detachment. Don't assume responsibility for the blindness of others. You offered the map. Navigation is their choice, and while you learn to manage this limitation in others, another silent weight is settling into your system. Ignorance allows you to be the protagonist of your own story, the center of a universe that revolves around you with divine purpose. Harsh lucidity reveals that the special self is irrelevant in the architecture of reality, that your personal dramas are statistically predictable, that your suffering is not unique. It is merely the result of universal causes operating through your nervous system. Narrative collapse happens when you discover that you are neither hero nor victim, just a temporary process in the impersonal flow of existence. This dissolution of personal importance completely destroys the peace of the ego because it removes the fuel that kept the illusion of the protagonist functioning. The living dead constructs epic narratives about their life. The operator of lucidity sees only processes happening without an owner, without special meaning. without the need to be relevant. The loss of the victim or hero role is devastating for those who have built their identity on these narratives. When you see that there is no solid I being attacked or victorious, you lose the ability to transform neutral events into personal dramas laden with injustice or achievement. The end of the feeling of injustice emerges from this clarity. Injustice presupposes that you deserved something different, that the universe has a moral obligation to treat you based on merit. This lucidity shows with stark realism that merit and justice are human concepts that reality completely ignores, that statistical predictability doesn't care how good or hard-working you are. This is liberating and devastating simultaneously. You stop expecting life to be fair, but you also lose the comfort of being able to blame something when things fall apart. Irrelevance as liberation only makes sense when you completely go through the dissolution of the ego, when you accept that the universe is neither for nor against you, that you are merely a temporary variable in systems of causality that existed before you were born and will continue after you die. The burden of having to prove your worth disappears, but with it goes the motivation based on external validation, the enthusiasm fueled by recognition, the energy that came from believing you were special. When the mechanism screams for importance, remember with stark clarity, you are a temporary process in the flow of reality. This is not depressing. It's the end of the prison of having to be special, of having to defend an image, of having to compete for relevance. But this cold peace has a side effect that few can bear. The lucidity operator processes reality through a brutal binary feasibility filter. Either there is a solution, then execute immediately, or there is no solution, then accept it without dramatizing. This kills worry, because worry is a waste of processing power in scenarios where you have no control. Scenario A. Is there a solution? Immediate action, total focus on execution, zero energy spent on anxiety. If the problem can be solved, worry is mathematically inefficient because it delays implementation and contaminates the system with emotional noise. Scenario B. Is there no solution? Radical acceptance, emotional neutrality, redirection of mental resources. If the outcome is inevitable, worry is an irrational attempt to fight gravity. You are burning energy on something you cannot change. The zero worry equation is simple. Can fix, well, do. Can't fix, accept. Any other response is self-sabotage. Why does this seem cold to the anesthetized masses? Because for those who live in ignorance, suffering and worry are social proofs of love or importance. If you don't dramatize, they interpret it as insensitivity. The living dead needs to enact the social drama, to publicly demonstrate that they are concerned, to prove they care. The operator of lucidity operates with emotional efficiency. They care through action when possible, through acceptance when impossible. You completely lose the ability to participate in the theater of performative concern. When someone shares a problem, your mind automatically runs, can you solve it? Yes, cause, offer a solution. No, cause, offer acceptance. There is no intermediate space for collective lament, for the mutual validation of suffering, for the empty comfort of I understand your pain. This excludes you from entire social rituals built around shared dramatization. The peace of mental sovereignty emerges from this operational clarity. You know exactly where you're stepping because you see the real terrain, not the colorful map they sold you. The world stops scaring you because you've already mapped the probabilities, calculated the risks, and accepted the limits of what you can control. Life loses its emotional suspense, but you gain total control of your internal state through cold sovereignty. Before worrying about anything, apply the binary filter without negotiation. Can I get through this now? Yes. Action without drama. No. Acceptance without resistance. Any response outside this protocol is a waste of processing power, contamination of the system, self-sabotage disguised as care. The weight of truth is that you can never again use worry as an excuse for inaction or as proof that you care. But this kind of clarity brings immunities that most will never develop. The modern world is a machine optimized for generating mental chaos, chronic anxiety, existential depression, paralyzing fear, perpetual insecurity. Those who lack clear vision are crushed by these modern mental illnesses because they operate without a map in hostile territory. Lucidity functions as a mental immune system against these cognitive viruses, but at the brutal cost of the comfort of denial. Anxiety as fear of an unmapped future disappears when you have already calculated the routes. If the problem comes, you have a protocol in place. If it is inevitable, you have already accepted the damage through radical acceptance. There is no room for panic about the unknown because you have already illuminated the territory with operational clarity. The living dead live in constant anxiety because they walk in the dark. The conscious elite operate with immunity to anxiety because they carry the lantern and know the map. Depression, as a clash between illusion and reality, loses its power when you don't work with fantasies. The mechanics of depression work like this. Fantastical expectation collides with raw fact. The system collapses because it wasn't prepared for the truth. Because the lucid operator doesn't construct illusions about how life should be, there isn't the devastating emotional fall when reality reveals itself. Reality can be harsh, but it's never a surprise. You were already operating with the real data, not the romanticized version. Fear, as a product of darkness, thrives in what you don't see, in the shadows where your imagination projects monsters. Lucidity is technical light that dissolves paralyzing fear. You may be facing real danger, but irrational fear disappears when you see the mechanics of the threat and know exactly what to do. Insecurity, as a lack of firm ground, arises from stepping on the quicksand of social lies. The operator treads on factual truth, and truth, however ugly it may be, is the only ground that doesn't give way under pressure. When these problems appear in the system, identify which lack of clarity is fueling them with the precision of someone debugging code. In most cases, you will find that the suffering stems from not wanting to see something that is already visible, from resisting accepting data that is already available. The lucid insomnia that many operators experience is not a disease. It is permanent vigilance at work. It is consciousness refusing to sleep while there are unmapped threats. The cost of consciousness is that you never completely switch off again, never again relax into comfortable ignorance. But the trade is fair. You give up the deep sleep of denial and receive immunity to shock, protection against emotional collapses, shielding against the mental plagues that destroy those who live anesthetized. And with this immunity installed, you begin to recognize patterns that others call luck. What ignorant people call luck, lucid operators call reading the board, recognizing opportunities that have always been visible to those with a calibrated field of vision. Lucidity allows you to see opportunities forming several moves in advance through impact prediction, identifying windows of action that others waste through sheer blindness. This creates a brutal, invisible competitive advantage. You position yourself strategically while others are still trying to understand what's happening. But it also creates the curse of constantly witnessing the waste of others' potential, seeing people rejecting obvious opportunities, making predictable mistakes, ignoring clear warnings. Luck as preparation is not a motivational concept. It's the mechanics of applied achievement. You sharpened your vision, mapped the terrain, calculated probabilities, and when the window opened, you were already positioned. The blind man literally stumbles over opportunity. It passes right in front of him, and he doesn't recognize it because he hasn't processed the data, doesn't understand the context, doesn't see how that specific move connects to long-term objectives. Or he's afraid to seize it because he doesn't understand the scenario, doesn't trust his own ability to navigate a minefield. The undead man wastes windows of opportunity due to a sheer lack of operational clarity, letting chances evaporate because he was busy dramatizing irrelevant problems. The lucid operator positions himself in advance because he sees the opportunity forming 10 rounds beforehand. No need for haste or desperation, he simply executes when the moment arrives. The geometry of cold peace operates like this. Knowing what awaits you removes the shock from existence, allowing you to navigate chaos with technical calm. The weight of knowing is infinitely less than the weight of being caught off guard. The curse of seeing others' wasted potential generates a specific frustration you need to manage. Watching people reject opportunities you would instantly identify, seeing them walk straight into obvious traps, ignoring signs that are luminous to you. This isn't arrogance, it's factual recognition that you operate by observing wasted potential because you've developed a skill they don't yet possess. Except that luck doesn't exist in the vocabulary of the conscious elite. There is preparation, finding opportunity. There is mental calibration, allowing for quick recognition. There is constant vigilance, identifying patterns. Continue sharpening your vision without arrogance, without trying to convince others they are blind. Opportunities will come to those who are awake when they appear, and when you are awake all the time, another problem silently emerges. Boredom is a symptom of a clouded mind that desires results but lacks a roadmap. It's like an engine idling, wasting energy, making noise, but not going anywhere because it doesn't know where to shift gears. It happens when the system is operating in ignorance, when there's impulse without direction, will without clarity. The living dead lives chronically bored because it can't translate existential emptiness into productive movement, remaining trapped in the cycle of wanting without knowing what, of searching without knowing where. The anatomy of boredom reveals pure processing failure. Lack of data, lack of protocol, lack of vision about next steps. It's paralysis disguised as disinterest, resistance camouflaged as apathy. When you don't know what to do, the brain goes into energy-saving mode and calls it boredom. Clarity as fuel for efficient action operates at the opposite pole. The operator is never bored because they are always adjusting variables, recalibrating routes, and executing next moves. If they know what to do and how to do it, they automatically enter a state of execution through the hunger for execution that clarity generates. The sequence of clarity is linear and inevitable. Clarity, direction, action, result. Where there is a lucid plan, there is no room for existential emptiness because each movement has a mapped technical purpose. You don't need external motivation when you have internal clarity. The very vision of the path generates the energy to travel it. The dynamics of clarity are self-sustaining. The more you see, the more you move. The more you move, the more data you collect. The more data you have, the clearer the next move becomes. The curse of perpetual responsibility emerges here. When you see clearly, you can no longer use "I didn't know" as an excuse for inaction. You are eternally responsible for acting on what you see, for executing what you have identified as necessary. This is radical freedom. No one controls you, no one tells you what to do, but it is also a permanent burden. You never rest in the innocence of not knowing. If you are bored, identify where the lack of clarity lies with brutal honesty. In most cases, boredom is disguised resistance. You know exactly what to do, but you don't want to pay the price of executing. You don't want to face the discomfort of action. Boredom protects you from the responsibility of moving. Clarity removes this protection and forces you to face it. You have the map, you have the direction, you have the ability. The only thing between you and movement is the choice to act. And when you finally act with clear vision, you realize that the terrain has always been full of obstacles that others cannot see. Reality is full of unavoidable obstacles, causal traps, destructive patterns, predictable consequences. Ignorant people walk through a minefield thinking they are in a garden because cognitive anesthesia removes the perception of danger. The living dead don't see the stones, so they don't develop the muscles or reflexes to deal with impact. When the fall comes, and it always comes through universal causality, the impact is devastating because I didn't expect it. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have a protocol in place. The shock is twofold. First, from the physical pain of the fall, then from the shock of discovering that the ground was never safe. Paralysis due to lack of vision generates a lack of initiative because it doesn't identify dangers, doesn't develop strategies, doesn't train responses, doesn't build resilience. It lives in the illusion that everything is fine until the first fatal impact. The lucid operator has a complete relief map. The rocks haven't disappeared, the world hasn't become easier, but it has become completely visible through minefield navigation. Seeing the rock in the distance allows for strategic choices, to deviate when possible, to jump when necessary, or to use it as a stepping stone when useful. Falls become a statistical rarity because you anticipate, calculate, and adjust your route in real time. The advantage of foresight isn't avoiding all suffering, it's transforming surprise into calculated data, transforming disaster into a manageable variable. When the impact occurs, it's not an emotional catastrophe, it's confirmation of a probability you had already mapped. You already knew the terrain was rugged, so you walk with a low center of gravity, with active vigilance, with emergency protocols in place. Initiative stems from the confidence of someone who knows the map and knows they can get through even when it's difficult. The curse of carrying the flashlight is that you constantly see every danger, every trap, every potential risk. This means permanent vigilance, the impossibility of unlearning what has been seen, lucid insomnia, where your mind never completely shuts down. While others sleep in comfortable ignorance, you are awake mapping threats, calculating probabilities, adjusting routes. It's absolute security at the cost of mental rest. You bought protection against surprises by selling the peace of not knowing. Accept with stark realism that seeing the stones is the price of not dying stumbling in the dark, that the anesthesia only lasts until the first fatal impact. Vigilance is forever, but it keeps you operational when others are bleeding from wounds they didn't see coming. The abrupt awakening never returns to sleep. And now that you see everything, the most difficult question arises. What to do when you see others walking straight towards the stones you've already mapped? When you see a stumbling block in someone else's path, your action should be surgical and completely devoid of emotional expectation. A technical warning without drama, acceptance of the stumble as a tool for others to calibrate themselves, offering a map without insistence. The warning, like a data ping, works like this. You emit the technical signal. That rock will knock you down at this angle, at this speed, with this impact. without moralizing, without begging them to believe you, without trying to convince them through emotional argumentation. It's pure technical reporting, factual observation based on pattern reading. You fulfill the function of a radar issuing an alert, but navigation is their sole responsibility. This completely frees you from being a savior by eliminating the savior complex, preserving your mental sovereignty because you don't hand over your peace to someone else's choice. Detachment from the consequences of the warning is non-negotiable. If you create an expectation that the person will change, you have surrendered your internal stability to their system. If they ignore the warning and fall, your mechanism remains completely stable because you have already processed in advance that warning is an offer, not a guarantee. The stumble as an opportunity for awakening has a specific function. For the anesthetized, the impact is sometimes the only stimulus strong enough to break through ignorance as a blessing and force confrontation with reality. The pain of stumbling acts as a biological alarm clock that can lead the person to want lucidity, not by philosophical choice, but by necessity for survival. You don't root for the fall, but you recognize its pedagogical usefulness when inevitable. The offering of the map happens after the impact or at the moment of the warning. There is a way to walk where you see the stones before you fall. When you get tired of stumbling, I'll show you the protocol. You become an available resource, not an insistent evangelist. To warn is an act of radical clarity applied without attachment. Ignoring the warning is the other person's absolute right. You don't control someone else's processing. You don't manage external maturity. You don't force awakening in someone who still needs to sleep. Falling is a learning process that reality imposes without narrative pity. Each fall calibrates the system. Each impact adjusts parameters. Each pain teaches lessons that words could never convey. When you accept these three facts with the management of emotional isolation, you become free from the curse of carrying someone else's vision, from the impossible responsibility of saving those who don't want to see. The strategic solitude that emerges from this posture is not coldness, it's maintaining sanity through applied anti-romanticism. You offer light without forcing closed eyes to open. You carry the lantern without guilt for those who prefer the dark. You operate with absolute mental sovereignty because you understand each person goes through life in their own time. Each person pays their own price. Each person decides when anesthesia costs more than lucidity. Clarity isn't a spiritual upgrade that brings happiness or inner peace, as the self-help industry promises. It's a brutal trade where you surrender innocence, the comfort of shared illusion, the ability to cope with betrayals or losses, and the peace of the herd that sleeps soundly in cognitive anesthesia. In exchange, you receive operational clarity that never switches off, immunity to modern mental illnesses that destroy those who live in a hazy state, and absolute mental sovereignty that frees you from being manipulated by external narratives. The destruction of common peace is irreversible. You've lost the right to return to ignorance because the inability to unsee is permanent. There is no middle ground, no a little clarity that lets you sleep peacefully. You've crossed the horizon and now carry the lantern permanently, seeing every stone, every trap, every destructive pattern that others ignore by choice or blindness. Now you see with harsh clarity. Ignorance is a blessing that works perfectly until the first fatal impact, until the moment you stumble in the dark and the fall destroys you because you weren't prepared. You had no map. You didn't know the terrain was mined. Clarity is a curse that lasts forever because permanent vigilance never rests. Perpetual responsibility never forgives. Intellectual solitude is never fully filled. But it's the only guarantee that you won't die in the dark, that you won't be caught by surprise, that when the impact comes, you've already calculated, already prepared, already accepted. The anesthetized live in false peace that ends in devastating pain when reality collapses their illusions. The operator of lucidity lives in constant vigilance that ends in real peace, not the emotional peace of comfort, but the cold peace of mental sovereignty that nothing external can destroy. The different action that emerges from this radical clarity is protocol. Stop trying to return to ignorance through distractions, substances, or denial. You cannot unlearn what you have seen. Accept the strategic solitude of clarity as a permanent price, not as a problem to be solved. Run the binary feasibility filter on every concern without exception. Can solve, execute. Cannot solve, accept. Warn others without emotional expectation when you see obstacles in their path. Send the data ping once with technical neutrality and then let go completely. See the obstacles in your own path and adjust the route precisely without dramatizing the fact that the terrain is difficult. Carry the flashlight even when heavy, even when lonely, even when no one thanks you for being awake while everyone else sleeps. The sustained responsibility that now falls upon you is non-negotiable. You can no longer use "I didn't know" as an excuse for any decision. Clarity has given you the complete map, shown you the mechanics, revealed the patterns. Now every move based on ignorance is a conscious choice to reject the truth. It's deliberate self-sabotage disguised as "I don't want to see." The mental burden is real. You carry knowledge that nobody wants. You see collapses that nobody foresees. You operate at a frequency that nobody picks up. Freedom is also real. You can no longer be manipulated by social narratives. You can no longer be surprised by predictable betrayals. You can no longer be destroyed by losses that were always temporary. The weight of conscience is permanent. The protection against chaos is too. Ignorance is a blessing that lasts until the fatal stumble in the dark. Lucidity is a burden you carry forever, but it keeps you alive when others die by surprise. The weight of knowing is infinitely less than the weight of being caught off guard. Choose your curse clearly, to die comfortably under anesthesia or to live awake in vigil. There is no third option. The cradle has already burned. The lantern is lit. You decide whether to carry it or let it fall. If you've made it this far, you've already crossed the horizon. There's no going back to the comfortable anesthesia that kept you asleep. The inability to unsee is already in place. Keep sharpening your vision even when it hurts, even when it isolates you, even when no one understands why you don't dramatize anymore. Austere Buddhism doesn't promise motivational emotional peace. It promises operational clarity even when brutal, even when lonely, even when permanent. Subscribe for more lucidity protocols without romanticization, more confronting truth without consolation, more radical dharma applied to mental survival in modern chaos. Turn on notifications, because the conscious elite don't sleep while the anesthetized masses stumble in the dark. This channel doesn't exist to help you sleep better. It exists to keep you awake, operational, sovereign, when everyone around you is sedated. The lantern is lit. The terrain is mapped. The stones are visible. Walk with clarity or stumble in ignorance. There is no middle ground.